So you will notice that nowhere did I mention the mitzvah of a Purim spiel. It's because there is no mitzvah of a Purim spiel. That is simply something that has grown up out of the celebratory aspect of Purim, which is commanded. That is commanded by the scroll of Esther, by the character of Esther herself, commands that it will be a day of feasting and rejoicing. Um, and the mitzvah with regard to that is the feasting. That's the celebratory aspect. The Purim spiel, the costumes, all that stuff grew out of understanding Megillat Esther as a melodrama, as a melodramatic allegory. It's making fun of something. It's the text itself is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It says all kinds of things that never happened historically, never existed, are clearly exaggerations and meant to be so. Okay? The characters are all fictional. They all have funny, weird names. The names have strange double meanings. Um, all this stuff, and you remember that God does not make an appearance in the Book of Esther at all. There's a reference, perhaps, to God where Mordecai says that to Esther, if you will not save the people, then help will come to us from somewhere else. Um, and that some people understand that to be a reference to God, but in fact, God never makes an appearance and is not directly referred to at any point in the book of Esther. So looking at all of these different factors, the tradition became to be silly, to be raucous, to be, there's the whole thing about getting drunk and all that stuff, and so the Purim spiel grew up out of that whole phenomena. It is not a mitzvah, and it is strangely and in my mind tragically what most people think Purim is. It's the day where we dress up. It's the way we dress up as Esther Hamalka, Esther Queen, Esther the Queen, and and we forget that actually Esther is a very complicated character in the book of Purim, um, and or we might dress up as Mordecai or Haman, or it's that kind of play, but often people don't actually know that the Purim spiel is sort of a custom that comes out of part of the celebratory aspect of the holiday. It is not the main thing. I think silliness and spiels and irreverence and all that stuff is absolutely essential on Purim. And it bubbles up, comes out of, arises out of the the dark background, the troubling background of this holiday. So unlike on Yom Kippur, where we somberly reflect on our sins and our complicity in suffering and evil, um, where we do that through fasting and being self-reflective. On Yom Kippur, on Purim, we do the same thing, but we do it through levity. We do it through play. So the things that I mentioned before, like reading the Zachor readings before Purim, the fast before Purim, these are things that are made to move you into the mode of Purim. They're not Purim itself in my mind. They're preparing you for understanding the levity in a particular way. Like it's man, it is really bad out there sometimes. You know what? Let's get drunk. It's kind of the mode. Let's get drunk and make fun of ourselves. Let's get drunk and make fun of the world. Let's get drunk and laugh. So in our community, we don't get drunk. Thank God, Baruch Hashem. I don't agree with that part of the holiday. It is also not a commandment. Um, So it is something I choose not to do, and it's something I'm really grateful that our community chooses not to do, because I think usually what the alcohol does is leads to an environment where it's really not a safe place for people. So we've got these practices and mitzvot around Purim. I'm just going to review them. First is Shabbat Zachor, reading Zachor. I think those readings are important. I don't think they should happen on Shabbat. I think Ta'anit Esther, the fast of Esther, is very important. But I think those two aspects of Purim should be put together and not done on Shabbat. First off, you don't want to fast on Shabbat, but on Monday and Thursday when we normally gather, those are normal fast days in the Jewish tradition. So I think we should be fasting on Mondays or Thursdays. And I think that's when we should be doing the readings of Zachor, not on Shabbat. Shabbat is not the place to be talking about genocide and things like that. It's Chilul Shabbat. In fact, I'll tell you a story. There was an elderly man that I was friends with, and because he was friends with me, he had not been to synagogue in since his bar mitzvah, and he was now in his late 60s, I think 70s, and because he knew me, he he thought, I'm gonna go to shul. I want to go to shul. This guy's doing something cool. I want to see what he's doing. He came to shul on Shabbat Zachor, and he saw what we were reading, and he got up and left. He was so disgusted. He was like, "What are you doing? This is evil. This is awful. How could you do this?" And he's right. So the rabbinic tradition has failed to give us a tradition that is not basically impossible for us to practice, and that is forbidden. The rabbis cannot impose rules on us that are a tircha, that are that are too hard for us to practice. That made it impossible for him, and he left. So I think that is an example of why if you're going to do Zachor at all, it needs to be done in a very thoughtful and self-reflective way in order to make it possible for Jews like us. The practice I mentioned was the feast of Purim. This is commanded. It is a commanded, so it is a commandment to do this feast, and we will be doing that at TBS. But my suggestion is that in future years, we invite people in. We invite people in to share in the feast, and through doing that, we also fulfill the mitzvah of giving gifts to the poor. And lastly, there is the mitzvah, again, a commandment. This is how you practice Purim. This is how our ancestors practiced Purim, was to give gifts to each other. And I think that can be a lovely and fun and beautiful way of acknowledging within the Jewish community. And I think we specifically would focus on giving gifts to our own Jewish community, to people who are in need within our Jewish community, um, that we would fulfill the mitzvah there, also simultaneously fulfill the mitzvah of giving gifts to the poor, and we would simultaneously be fulfilling the mitzvah of giving gifts, ish l're'ehu, one person to their friend, to their neighbor, at the same time. And I think that's a way of making Purim more reflective of what it actually is, more possible emotionally for thoughtful and caring Jews who are willing to be self-critical. And and finally, you need to just be lighthearted. All that preparation leads up to the day of Purim, and on the day of Purim, it's silly. It's silly and playful and irreverent, and kids have a blast and adults have a blast. And there's a kind of catharsis that happens when adults get permission to be silly. Kids love seeing adults be silly, and they need to see adults being silly. God forbid we take out the silly and the playful aspect of Purim, what I'm talking about embracing and understanding the backdrop is in preparation to the playfulness of Purim. By the way, I missed one mitzvah. One mitzvah, of course, is the reading of the Megillah. In my mind, the reading of the Megillah should not be where the groggers come out and the noise making happens. We want to just read the Megillah. If you just read the Megillah in a normal, slow way, it will take about, 30 minutes, let's say, 30, 45 minutes, something like that. And then that mitzvah is completed. When the groggers come out, when you make all the noise, that's during the spiel. That's during the spiel, during the playfulness. When someone dresses up as Haman, we boo them. When someone's dressed up as Esther, we cheer her, that kind of thing, or them, we cheer them. Um, Whoever is dressed up as whoever, right? Um, so um, so I think that's where they should come out. And I think the reading of the Megillah should just be mamasha reading of the Megillah, not trying to do all the theater within the reading of the Megillah. So uh, that is my Purim jam. And I'm hoping that now that I've given you this, you'll all be able to pass the test that you're going to be given on Friday night, on Friday afternoon, evening, when we celebrate Purim together. Okay, blessings to everyone, and Shabbat Shalom and Purim Sameach.